Hi everyone, we are going to continue with our Wild West unit. Today we will prepare to read A Pioneer Sampler, The Daily Life of a Pioneer Family in 1840 by Barbara Greenwood, illustrated by Heather Collins. So this is a historical fiction text, which means that it's set in a real time and place in the past. Authors of historical fiction tell the story through the plot or the main events of the story. Often, the plot and conflict are shaped by the story's setting or time period and location. Historical fiction includes characters that act, think, and speak like real people from the past would. It might tell the story of a fictional character in a real setting from the past. Authors of historical fiction may use sensory details and figurative language to develop the setting and characters. So before we begin to read today, what I'd like you to do is think about, what do you know about pioneers and what do you want to learn? Our learning target for today is I can analyze the relationships and conflicts among characters. So when we think about characters, they are part of the literary elements which make up a story. So the characters are the people and the animals in a story, and today we're really going to focus on what do they say and think and what do they do. The other element that's going to be very important is the setting, where and when the story takes place. And those two are going to be particularly interesting because this is a historical fiction text. We want to see, how does the author show us that these characters and the setting are not taking place right now? So if you're following along in your text, you're going to open to page 285. The Robertsons are a pioneer family living on a backwoods farm in 1840. Although the Robertsons are a fictional family, their struggle to clear the forest, to plant, to harvest, and to make a good life for themselves echoes the efforts of our early settlers who worked hard to build a home, a community, and a country. The Robertsons, like real settlers, live by this motto: eat it up, wear it out, make it do, or go without. The Robertson children learn that many hands make light work, and that it's best to make hay while the sun shines. But life isn't all chores and making do. Maple sugar frolics and harvest suppers, husking bees and barn dances, the birth of lambs, and the search for a honey tree brighten the days as the seasons pass from winter to spring, from summer to fall. And as I look at this image, it reminds me a lot of a family photograph. So I'm going to use the illustrations to help me visualize or imagine what life was really like for these early pioneers. So if we look at the bottom, we see that our characters are Willie, Granny, Sarah, Ma Robertson, Pa Robertson, George, Meg, and Tommy, and Lizzie. Harvesting the crops. Stand up properly, Meg said. You can't carry water all hunched over like that. Willie wiggled his shoulders to make the yoke sit more comfortably, then straightened up. The weight of the buckets made the wood bite into the back of his neck. It hurts, he complained. Stop fidgeting. Meg moved the yoke slightly, and the pressure eased. You'll be fine. It's a lot easier than lugging a bucket by hand, and you won't lose nearly so much water. Off you go. The men will be dying of thirst. Carrying the water out to the hayfield had always been Meg's or George's job. This year, Pa wanted George to help with the harvesting, and Ma had decided that Willie and Sarah were big enough to carry water. Stupid buckets, Willie grumbled to himself as he trudged off. I want to do real work, like George. That reminded him of George sitting at the grindstone last evening, making me turn the handle while he sharpened the sickle. Thinks he's so important just because Pa's letting him help cut the hay this year. The sun beat down from a blue sky. Pa had been right about the weather. Listen to those cicadas sing, he said the night before. We'll have a good haying weather tomorrow. Willie rested his hands on the bucket handles to keep them from swinging and arched his back against the weight. Across the fields, he could see Pa and one of the big Simpson boys who'd been hired on for the summer. They swayed back and forth as they swung the long-handled scythes to cut the hay. But George was bent over using the short-handed sickle to trim around a tree stump. Every so often, Pa stopped and ran a whetstone over his scythe blade. Willie liked the raspy zoop of the whetstone sharpening the blade. The stubble of cut grass prickled Willie's bare feet as he crossed the field. The soles of his feet were toughened from months of running barefoot, but with the buckets dragging him down, the stubble felt sharp, and he was anxious about tripping over an upthrust stone and spilling the water, or, worse still, stepping on a snake. With luck, the snakes would all be gone. Just yesterday, he and George had been out with sticks beating the fields to scare away snakes and families of skunks and rabbits. Last thing I want, Pa had said, is animals exploding out of the grass in front of me when I'm swinging a scythe. Like to cut a foot off. Ah, here he is. Pa straightened and stretched. Time for a rest, boys. Willie lowered the buckets carefully to the uneven ground, shrugged off the yoke, and handed around the gourds he'd brought as water dippers. Now that you're here, Pa said, you can stay a while and spread some of that hay. Can't spare anyone from the cuttin' till we're further along. So we're going to think about how the author has presented some of the characters. So what I'd like you to do now is you're going to go and underline words and phrases that help you understand what kind of person Willie is as a character. What is he feeling? What is he thinking? And what kind of words could you use to describe him?